Hey everybody, and welcome to FleetNav Systems Tuesday live stream. Today I have Trooper Brent Hoover back in with me today. So Trooper Hoover, are you here? We'll make sure our audio is good and everything. And Trooper Hoover's agreed to come back on the show since we had a bunch of follow-up questions from you guys. I'm hoping to get most, if not all of those taken care of here for you. And then on top of that, if you guys have any additional questions you'd like to hear us answer, let us know and we'll take care of that as well. Kind of before we get going, I'm just going to throw this up there. Nothing you hear today is technically legal advice. Do reach out to your local FMCSA or DOT field office. The link is in the description below as always. And Trooper Hoover, do we have you here now?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for coming back on the show for us.
No problem.
How are things going there in Indiana for you?
Oh, it's starting to get hot, but we're not stopping trucks yet, so we're still sucking in the AC best we can. But hopefully we, like the rest of the country, get reopened and get out there and start stopping trucks and meeting and greeting and getting back to what we're born and bred to do. So
excellent. Cool. So I guess we'll just kind of jump right into this. But guys, like I said, if you're in the chat today, you have questions for Trooper Hoover, put them in there. We're going to get to as many of those as possible. Kind of the focus of the beginning of this one today, I wanted to cover the questions that have come in. And one of the main ones that I would love to hear some more about is the split sleeper berth exception. Trooper Hoover, I've got somebody who was asking about that as far as like the different split hours, and I understand that from what I've seen, you can have an 8-2 split, or both of them have to be at least 2 hours, and obviously you have to get your full 10 hours. But what about things like a 7-3 split? Is that a thing, or is that not? Does that even exist?
yeah. So what it is, we'll kind of hit the 7-3. It's not a myth anymore. In May, the FMCSA announced that there will be some new hours of service coming out, some revisions to those, and in that's hopefully due to taking action or become the new law is supposed to hit in September, but they do discuss a 7-3 split. So basically, I'm going to read real quick what that new information is, and then we can kind of break it down and go from there. So the agency will modify the sleeper berth exception to allow drivers to split the required 10 hours off duty into two periods, an 8-2 split and a 7-3 split, with neither period counting against the driver's 14-hour driving window. So how that's changing, or what's making the change, is the current, and this isn't the new one yet, not till September, but the current 8-2 split, the only time frame that could pause that 14 hours was at 8 hours in the sleeper berth. That was the only thing that could pause. Well, what's happened, or will happen in September when this goes into effect, the 7-3 and the 8-2, all parts of those are going to pause at 14 hours. So if a driver, say, is coming to a big city and he knows, oh gosh, rush hours from 3 to 6, and he decides to pull over and take a 3-hour break and then utilize the 7 later on, basically what's going to happen is that 3 hours is going to pause his day. And then basically he can lay down, take a nap, get out of the truck, stretch his legs, do whatever. If he's off duty for 3 hours, it's going to pause. And then after that 3-hour window, he can basically restart his clock and go from there. So same thing with the 8-2. And like I said, the current way is 8-2 with the 8-hour block. The only thing pausing, but basically it's going to pause or not count against you on your 14 hours. So hopefully that'll be something that benefits. I know there was still some folks wanting like a 5 and 5 or a 6 and 4, but this is what they gave us, so this is what we're gonna be looking at come September when this goes full-fledged into the law book.
Okay, I see. And then from what I understand with so the 8 hour has to be currently the way it stands right now, the 8 hour has to be sleeper berth time. Now, but the other 2 hours that can also be SB, or it can be off, or it can be PC. Is that correct?
It can be off duty. It can be sleeper berth. As far as personal conveyance, I have, anytime they release something new, it brings questions up. So that's a good question that hopefully will be answered later on, is if you could do a 2-hour PC, but I could, and this is just me talking because the feds have not given any input on this, but I could see them saying, no, the truck needs to basically be parked, parking brake set, and you can either be off duty or sleeper berth. So, but like I said, the feds, they've done many miraculous things in the past, and who knows how they'll do that. But just me personally talking, I probably don't see that happening as an option to be personal conveyance during those times.
Gotcha. Okay.
So.
Yep, that makes sense. And then, so the way it stands currently as well, that, so if I were, now you can take the 2 different break times in either order, but only the 8-hour one's gonna pause your clock. Is that right?
That's correct. Under the current rules in place right now, you can do either or, but the 8 is what's going to pause or not count against you, and that 2 hours does count against your 14-hour clock. So just be careful. Just be careful there. Usually people pause their clock with that 8 and then utilize your driving time later, and then just follow that up with a 10-hour break just to get everything reset and to start fresh. So.
Gotcha. Okay. But now the way that it does work, and hopefully this is useful to some people, because I just want to make sure I've got this all the way straight. Like, if I were a driver and I started at noon today, and so I start my 14-hour clock, and at 2 o'clock I decide to take my 8 hours, right? Then my clock, my 14-hour clock is paused. Ordinarily, that would be, as long as I'm in that split sleeper, the sleeper berth status, if I, as long as I take that full 8 hours and I'm in SB, then I've only actually used 2 of my hours today, and I've still got 12 hours on my clock. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Cool.
So you have whatever's remaining to use up.
Okay. Okay, great. And then after that, so just in theory, after that, so it's 10 o'clock at night by the time I am finished with that 8-hour break, and then I've got another 12 hours in my work day. Now, at the end of that 12 hours, legally, I could go off for 2 more hours and then have a full reset day. Is that right?
No. Basically, if you're going to utilize that 2 in conjunction, basically it's gonna give you whatever you had beforehand. So let's say, like you said, you started at noon. At 2 o'clock. So from 8 hours is 10 o'clock. You took sleeper berth and you ran for, however long. And then let's say you ran 6 hours. Well, it's only going to give you whatever time you had in the beginning. So it's never going to fully give you a 10 or a fresh 11 and 14 unless you do a full 10-hour block. And that's what gets a lot of drivers in trouble.
Yeah.
They go, well, I stopped for 2, now I got all my time back. No. You got just whatever you had before. So if your last full segment was 6 hours of drive time, you only have 5 hours left. So you just got to be careful to know, know how much time you've used, and that's how much time you have left. And that's where it gets people in trouble with that.
Okay. Okay. So even if you've gotten your entire split sleeper time in, it does not reset your driving time. Is that right?
Yes, it does not reset your driving time. Even though you could say, well, in the last 24 hours, I've had a total of 10,
Mm-hmm.
8 plus 2, got to be a full 10-hour block to reset it totally.
Gotcha. Okay. So the point of split sleeper really then at that point is just to pause your day, like if you were stuck at a loading dock for a long time or something like that.
Yes, and from what a lot of the discussion I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard,
Mm-hmm.
8 hours is just too long. It's normally 5 or 6 hours
Yeah.
that a poor driver has to sit there. So then he's being forced to sit there another 2 before he can pause it, or like we all know, the shipper's going, okay, you're loaded, leave, and you're going, but now all I did was waste 6 hours of my 14, and I'm screwed. So with the 7-3 coming, maybe the 3-hour block will help more. I was a little shocked that they gave the 7-3, but they didn't do a little more past that.
Like a 6-4
really
or something?
There was going to be a 6-4, because really I think most drivers, that 4 hours would really help them, or worst case a 6 hour. But you see where I'm at. I'm still working for Indiana, not the FHCSA.
Sure.
But hey, who knows? Maybe if things go well and we can prove to them that guys are able to utilize this 7-3 and they're able to do it in a safe manner, and we give them the data that shows that, hey, it's working, maybe hopefully they'll expand on that and give a little bit better. Because ultimately, me personally, I've been asked this, well, what do you think? And it's like, honestly, as long as people are being safe, we're not seeing the frequency of crashes, chasing the clock, everything else, I'm all for safety. And if you guys say that benefits you and makes you a safer driver, I'm all for that. So that's just my little 2 cents on that aspect of that. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Al Johns has a comment here. He says, Trooper Hoover sounds like a guy who loves his job. Good for him.
I do. I really enjoy, and a lot of people want to say, well, DOT just enjoys writing tickets and placing guys out of service. No, honestly, I enjoy working with drivers. I enjoy helping people, as do 99% of the people that get into any law enforcement, fire, EMS. We just want to help people.
Sure.
And like I said, this for me has been, and I've even expanded on it. I've went out and got my CDL. In fact, I didn't know if I was going to make it in time because I was getting my CDL physical today. So I eat, live, breathe this to the point that my 8-9-year-old little girls can identify a Kenworth and a Peterbilt and everything else. So I really do. I get ate up. I enjoy this job, and really I just enjoy working with the good folks that are out there and have the same idea of, hey, I want to get home to my family after the week, and let's all accomplish that. So
that's awesome.
He's exactly right.
Cool. Yeah, it's always good when you love your job. I love it here at Fleet Nav, so same thing. All right, so the next one that we had a couple of questions on. Kelly is in the Kelly Clovis is in the chat as well, and she says, thank you for your service, Trooper Hoover. The next one I'm gonna go on to here is the ag exemption. We got a couple of questions on that. Now, one of the ones that we had, that was Smokin' Papa asked this earlier. He said, can he use the ag exemption at any time, or does he have to start it at the beginning of the day? And to expound on that, he actually was asking, if he were running out of his 11 hours or something like that, would that be an acceptable way to do that? And I think I kind of know the answer to this one, so I'm going to run this by you, Trooper Hoover, and you can let me know if I've got the right idea. because if you're on the ag exemption, that actually gets put in under PC. So if you're running under personal conveyance anyway, at least that's how we've been recommended to put it down right now. You put it as a personal conveyance status and you annotate that it's the ag exemption. Geotab's ELD, I know they're working on a way that you may be able to put in your own exemptions, but in this case, I don't know why you would ever be, if you just applied the ag exemption at the beginning of your day, if you're doing an agricultural load anyway, I don't know why you'd end up, I mean, that would be a whole lot of driving to be at the end of your 11 hours, because you've got that, if you're on personal conveyance, it's already counting as off. So is there any reason why you wouldn't start the ag exemption at the beginning of the day if you are hauling that? Or I guess kind of in line with that, and I can break these up if we need to, but go ahead, you first. I'll follow up after that.
All right. So basically on this, sorry, I'm trying to put some earbuds in to make this a better listening experience for you guys, and they're all twisted up. So let me
take your time.
20 seconds. Okay. All right. Hear me okay?
Yep, just fine. Thank you.
Excellent. So, the question was, if I know I'm going to be in ag, can I just go ahead and start my day in ag exemption? So, the best way to answer this is by scenarios, because basically the big question is, if me, Brent Hoover, running Brent Hoover Trucking, and I'm going to go to Indianapolis from Terre Haute, Indiana to load seed, which is an ag commodity, and I am within 150 air miles of where that commodity is going to be picked up, I can go ahead and put myself in ag, basically in that exemption, ag exempt, because I'm within 150 air miles of where that item is going to be picked up. So I'm basically ag exempt. I drive to Indianapolis, I pick up the seed, and now I ask them, where's this seed going to? And they said, well, Brent Hoover, lucky you get to go to Charleston, West Virginia. Oh, lucky me. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start driving. I'm still 100, and then basically that first 150 air miles from Indianapolis where I picked that product up, I am still going to be ag exempt off duty. So then once I cross that threshold of 150 air miles from Indianapolis, boom, I am now on duty. I'm now tracking my time just like normal. Now I'm still trucking along. I get through Ohio, and now I'm within 150 air miles from my drop in Charleston, West Virginia. I can switch back over to ag exempt because I'm 150 miles from that farm. And then, so it's basically, if you're within 150 air miles of where you're picking it up or dropping it off, you can basically be in that category. So like you said, if you get to the point in your day where you're pushing your time and you've been loading ag products, there's probably something, an issue or something where maybe something wasn't calculated or wasn't tabulated right. So hopefully in a nutshell, that kind of explains a little bit of the ag exemptions and all of that.
Yeah, I think so. That's cool. So now, just so that I've got a clear picture of this, between your two cities, now is it 150 air mile radius? You've got it definitely from Indianapolis, but your West Virginia location, was that Charleston? You've got
Yeah, and I'm sure somebody may go, Charleston is not West Virginia.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Well, I'm pretty sure now. Okay, now I'm going to have to Google this. So if somebody out there's quick on the Google, let me know, is there a Charleston, West Virginia or not? I'm pretty sure it's the state capital.
I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure that's the state capital. It hasn't been too long. So.
I thought, Well, it's been so long since I've taken a road trip and had to test my road trip trivia stuff. So
Yeah,
usually we hit on state capitals.
we're gonna have to work some state
I know.
capital trivia.
Somebody take me on a road trip. Yeah.
Right. We're gonna have to work some state capital like trivia into our trivia on the show here. That might be a
There we go.
good
There we
one.
go.
We'll
Yep.
see about working that in
But-
future episodes.
So, but yeah, and looking at one of the questions, Smoking Papa, he said PC is under ag. What that is, Papa, is that the ag exemption is an off-duty status, and for a lot of these devices, PC is a way that you can tell the device you're in an off-duty status. But what we talked about the last time was document, and if you're in PC using that as your off-duty, make sure and document that and show that as ag-related, ag moves. So if you are stopped or the company gets audited or something, they know exactly why that was being used. So hopefully that kind of sets that up a little bit better. And I think you said your company's working on trying to develop a little bit different, or an ag tab maybe.
Yeah, so Geotab's been working with, Geotab works pretty closely, I think, with the FMCSA to actually, make sure that their product is compliant and stuff. And I believe the next release that's just starting to roll out to our customers right now gives the administrators an option on their end to actually, have an extra button so that if they've got drivers going under the ag exemption, they can hit an ag exemption button that the administrator sets up, just so that it's an even easier way to just make sure it's very well documented that this was an ag exemption, not simply personal conveyance or something like that. And Patricia, it looks like, is on here, and she's keeping track for us. Thank you so much for that. Charleston is the capital of West Virginia.
I just wanted to thank you. I'm like, woohoo, I'm victorious. So,
yes.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. I know most of my state capitals, but for some reason West Virginia, I can never keep... West Virginia and South Carolina are the two I usually get confused. South Carolina Raleigh?
South Carolina.
I think.
Wrong. Or Raleigh, is that North Carolina?
That might be North Carolina. See, it's those couple of eastern, southeastern.
Charleston, everybody knows Charleston, South Carolina because of that's where Fort Sumter is.
Yep. So we'll have to work on that. Next time I have you on the show, Trooper Hoover, the beginning part we'll do is we'll just run through all the state capitals. How about that?
Yeah, there we go. We'll confuse the heck out of everybody. They'll be like, what have I tuned in?
What is this? Yes.
But, yeah.
Excellent. And
no, it is not a place where all the right...
Yeah. All right. So I guess I think we're almost done. I have a couple of other things with the ag exemption. So now that we know
absolutely.
Charleston is the capital of West Virginia, now are there 150 air miles from Indianapolis to whatever 150 air miles is from Indianapolis towards Charleston, and then they have to be when they're within 150 air miles of their delivery point, do they also get to go on the ag exemption, or do they have to wait until they make that delivery?
Yes, and I just Googled it, Columbia is the capital of South Carolina. So, all right, now that we know that, I knew that was going to bug me. So, but yeah,
well, I'm glad you said it, and that's
Columbia,
why.
South Carolina.
Now I remember why I get them confused, because they're both...
Hey, exactly.
See, Columbia and Charleston.
But yeah, the big thing with the ag exemption is that, yes, you get 150 from where you pick it up, and you get 150 to where you're going. So yeah, if it's one of those deals, locations physically are 800 air miles apart. For the first 150, you're off, and then that time frame in between the 500 miles, and then the last 150 to the drop, you can be
Back on ag.
ag exempt.
Cool. Okay. All right. That's neat. All right. Thanks for that. The other one that I have is somebody asked if you could describe or kind of go into a bit about the ag exemption for hopper bottom drivers. And I had to Google what that was. I will admit I was totally ignorant on that one. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh,
Well,
duh. But
yeah.
is there a
Oh, yeah.
difference, or is that is there a different sort of compliance standard for hopper bottom ones, or how does that work?
The, like with everything else, it depends on what it is.
Okay.
Around here in my neck of the woods, 99% of the time, hopper bottom trailers are grain, corn, wheat, soybeans, farm related. I've even seen some fertilizer. There was one time something random came through, and it was not agricultural related at all. It was like sand for brick. I mean, it was kind of weird. And I was like, why is it loaded in this? And they said, yeah, this is all we had, and we figured we'd run with it. So 99% of the time, the big thing is no matter what it's loaded in, dry van, reefer, whatever, if it's considered an agricultural related product, then it's good to go. So, and like I said, around here, I'm sure people have seen hopper bottoms used for different things, but around in Indiana, hopper bottoms are 99% agricultural based products anyway. So,
Okay. Cool. Well, I forgot to write down who that was who asked that one, but if you're here today with us, thanks for asking the question, and I hope we got that answered for you the way you wanted it. And then the last one I've got here, and then we'll go to some of the other questions in the chat, is livestock hauling. I had somebody call me today and ask me about livestock hauling, and I know you and I were chatting about this a bit before the show, but can you, for the sake of all of our wonderful viewers who have joined us today, would you mind just kind of telling us a little bit about how the hours of service rules relate when it comes to livestock hauling?
absolutely.
Thanks.
So, there's two types of livestock hauling. So, how we're going to break this down is you got the bull haulers, the livestock trailers. Those guys are ag exempt. So basically, they're following the same. Wherever they pick up from, they get 150 air miles in the beginning, and where they drop off to, 150 air miles at the end, and then they have to log all that time in between. Kind of what we talked about a little bit was the hobby hauling.
Mm-hmm.
So now these are more your pickup trucks, your dually pickups, hauling horse trailers, little livestock trailers. Those are going to be your hobby folks. And the way the state of Indiana, and I'm talking just the state of Indiana because obviously that's where I'm at. Those are the things we enforce.
Mm-hmm.
But the rule base that we got on it was more or less is if your tax man says that you buying that truck, buying that trailer, transporting those show ponies or whatever are costing you money at the end of the year because it's your cost, it's your hobby, that is not going to be commercial, and all of that. Now, if you decide, hey, I'm going to haul Billy Bob's show pig down the road, and Billy Bob's going to pay me, whether it be cash, a case of beer, an apple pie, whatever, you're receiving compensation. Now you're back in the federal regs. But if it's basically my personal truck, my personal trailer, my show animals of whatever, my show goats, and I'm going to wherever to show them and have, a hobby weekend. Same thing with race cars. Like we've got a lot of little dirt tracks around here, and we get outfits that, or pulling tractors, stuff of that nature. Basically, if it's costing you money to do it, to participate, then it's personal. It's not going to fall under the federal regulations. But if you're so far sponsored that basically you don't work because you're paid to race on the weekends and your name's all up and down that truck and trailer and you're driving it from show to show, and that's all you do Monday through Saturday or Sunday is think about racing, eat, sleep, breathe racing, now that's something different. So there's a big difference between hobby and profession. So if you can look at it and say, you know what, at the end of the year, I'm spending more money than I'm ever making on my hobby, then it's private. There's not going to be anything federal that Indiana's going to impose on you.
Gotcha. So how about here's a real tricky one, or at least I think it's tricky. You might know it right off the bat here. What if for your job you do livestock hauling, like show horses and stuff, but you're also doing it as a hobby for yourself? Like if, I don't know, let's say on weekdays you're doing this for your job and maybe on the weekends you're doing it personally, how would you recommend logging that, assuming you're going to have an ELD in your vehicle at all times? But I would assume it's not technically a commercial motor vehicle if you're pulling your own livestock for something like that?
That would be something, and I think we talked about, I think we may have hit on it a little bit last episode, I can't quite remember, but basically on this, if I've got my big brand new F450, crew cab, four-wheel drive, big old diesel, and I've got my big 3-axle livestock trailer, and Monday through Friday, I am Brent Hoover livestock hauling for hire, and I'm getting outside of my 150 air miles more than 8 times in a 30-day period, and I need an ELD, then yeah, through the week I'm going to be logging that. Now, when it comes to Friday evening, and now it's time to take my personal property and go, that can be logged, off duty. And then you'll need to keep records as what you was doing and basically be able to prove that, hey, all that was in an off-duty status. This is my own property. I was paying, I wasn't billing for fuel and labor and all that, but this is my own thing. So that comes down to, you'd be logged out, and just when it come Monday morning, it asks for miles. You're going to have to go in there as the administrator and dictate why there's an extra 300, 400 miles on the vehicle from when you logged out. So
Sure.
A lot of that is just basically dotting your I's, crossing your T's to show what you're really doing.
Okay. So in the Geotab system, the way this would work, unless you're like actually pulling your unit completely out of your vehicle, is as the driver, you would either if you were still attached to the vehicle, you would have to be in personal conveyance to drive in a situation like that. Would that be, if you saw that and it was annotated that it was personal time, would that be, do you think, at least on your end, would that be acceptable?
Yeah. And again, I know we talked about it in length last time, but document.
Yep.
Just because when you get stopped roadside and that officer does see a personal conveyance, that's a big red flag, because we really talked about how are people cheating the new electronics. They're flagging a lot of personal conveyance time that's not truly legitimate personal conveyance. So us as officers, us as inspectors, anytime we see that personal conveyance, we're going to home in on that, and we're going to be asking some questions. Hey, bud, it says here you went on personal conveyance Friday. You went to this other city. Looked like you stayed overnight, and you personal conveyance home. What exactly were you doing? Oh, well, I own my own show pigs, and me and my daughter went and showed hogs at this county fair, and we stayed the night, and then we came back. Okay. Is there any other, paperwork? Do you have anything to, note that? Yeah, here's a picture of us, her standing there with her blue ribbon for women, okay, Billy Bob County Fair, congratulations. So, just having little things like that helps back up your story, and of course, having a good attitude. And we talked a lot about, hey, having a good attitude, working together. If first thing, hey, what was this personal name? Well, that was none of your dang business. No, it kind of is my business, because you're running this CMV, just work with us. Answer. Be truthful and honest, and we see that. And when you're being honest, it goes so much quicker. It gets you going so much quicker. The inspection turns out better, and it's just a lot better on everybody.
Sure.
So yeah, just document. Be honest, and just let us know. What was going on, and just work with us.
So the other way that this could be documented, at least on the Geotab ELD, is if the driver logged out of the app for the weekend and was disconnected from the vehicle. And what that's going to do is it's going to show a bunch of unassigned logs, and those are the ones that the admin could go in and annotate. Now, if it's the same driver, like if I were driving all week long, livestock hauling for the week, and then on the weekend I go to the county fair, what would you prefer? Like, would you have a preference there? Would you prefer to see that in PC with me logged into the ELD, or would you prefer to see it as unassigned logs? Or does it even matter if it's all properly annotated?
Really, I personally don't, and there may be some guys that do audit and would say they would rather see it this way or that way. Me personally, as long as it's legible, it's clearly to see what it's understandable of what was being done and all that. I think one or the other. The big thing is, again, if hey driver, I noticed you got 2 days worth of unedited logs here or whatever. Well, I was doing this personal. This is my vehicle, or the same vehicle I use full whatever. Okay, makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Common sense. Whoa, who would have thunk?
Yeah. That is the magic phrase with everything going on in the world right now. Common sense.
Cool.
We can solve a lot of problems with common sense.
I think
Take
so.
a breath.
For sure. Yeah, and for anybody listening in, I have received a comment from one of my coworkers that in my audio it sounds like I have a window open or something. The place that I am live streaming from, my office, just has very thin windows and happens to be located in on a busy street. So if you're hearing motors going by, you're just gonna bear with me. That's I've got things about as insulated as audio as possible. So.
You can tell us you're hanging out.
Yep.
A Harley bar. You can tell us.
Best hangout. All right. All right. So I've got a question here. We've got in the chat from Al Johns. He says, "I'm about to start hauling booze at a new job. What kind of FMCSA rules would apply to me?"
Well, the big thing there is keep the booze in the back where it belongs, and and make sure any amount of alcohol you're transporting, make sure it's bill of lading. Because really, past that, there's really nothing. Some states have alcohol permits, stuff like that. Indiana, we don't really have anything in the 10 years I've been doing this that I've ever seen as far as alcohol transportation permits or anything. Big thing is that, and it sounds like you're going to be doing it professionally, so you really don't have anything to worry about, but alcohol in general is one thing that gets a lot of drivers in trouble. If they've got it up in the cab, if they stopped, bought a six-pack, stopped, had dinner, or made dinner in the truck, they drank 2 bottles at dinner, went to bed, got up the next morning, and then they get DOT'd, and the inspector looks back in the sleeper, and then there's bottles of alcohol. Having alcohol in possession could push it to, let's slow down. When did you drink it? How long ago did you drink it? Here, blowing this.
Sure.
And could end badly. So, and I get those questions a lot, or especially from guys, hey, I'm trucking out west, and there's a certain brand of beer that my wife, who's originally from the West Coast, loves, but we can't get it out here East Coast. And then I jokingly ask them if they've ever seen Smokey the Bandit, and most time I get a good chuckle out of it, but occasionally I'll get that blank stare and I'm like, oh boy. But they don't get the joke. But no, that's the big thing. When it comes to alcohol, stuff like that, try to avoid doing any of that out on the road. Just because if something would happen, it's so hard to articulate to the non-grace side of things versus it going bad quick.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if this one is, I guess it kind of falls in the scope there, if we want to cover it. It's, the other one Al Johns mentioned earlier was, he asked if it was legal for protesters to block a major interstate. I don't know, would that fall under, like, peaceful protest? Because that seems to be obstructing, travel and things.
Yeah, and like I said, that real quickly we can get too deep in, but
sure.
We'll stay on the shallow end with our floaties on.
Absolutely.
Basically, yes, it's illegal to block traffic. Yes, it's illegal to inhibit all that. And it's just a matter of people above the officer's pay grade as far as how quickly they want to, file charges and stuff like that.
Sure.
So to answer short and simple, is it illegal to block traffic? Yes, it is. And like what we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago, we won't go into anything else on that just because there's so many different ways it could go. And I currently like having a job and all that, so I don't want to say something silly and get myself in trouble.
Sure.
But again, common sense. You're put in a situation, you do have the ultimate right to defend yourself and protect yourself. So just try to use common sense.
Common sense.
Especially with social media, news, if something's going on, it's talked about real quick, so just try to avoid those areas. So
yep. Good.
Be safe, and remember you got people to get home to. So
common sense. Sounds good. Thanks for the advice there, Trooper Hoover. I think that's... Yep, and Al John says thanks for the answer. Yep, alright. Well, that looks like it. If anybody else has a question, get it in there quickly for us, because I'm not going to keep Trooper Hoover on here for no good reason. But it's been really good having you on here again, and I think we got all of the questions that we at least had submitted afterwards answered, so
great.
On everybody's behalf, thanks.
Well, and if you don't mind me giving a shameless plug for
please.
Indiana State Police, our commercial vehicle enforcement page, Facebook page. Not really had too much on there just because with things going on, I don't like to, post too much, but what I'm hoping to is when we get back to inspecting commercial motor vehicles, we'll get back to posting some good videos, posting kind of the tips of the day, and just things that, and know that I'm the sole person behind this. So when you see something shared on the page, I share it as a learning tool. I don't want people thinking like too many times I'll post something as a tip. An example was about 2 years ago, I posted something about, hey guys, if you're mounting your cell phone or mounting your GPS, try to avoid the center part of the windshield. Well, it blew up, and it blew up in the wrong way. People thought we were out, stopping guys, hammering them for this and that. And it was a simple thing of, if you want to avoid a goofy violation, don't put your cell phone in the dead center of your windshield,
Sure.
Or hey, when you're doing your pre-trip, excuse me, when you're doing your pre-trip, check here, look for dry powdery rust. Too many times people are like, well, I can't believe you wrote this guy a ticket because he's out of service. Excuse me. So, know that what I post and what I try to put on there is just that. It's a tip. It's try to help people learn to just do things better.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think if you were trying to put somebody out of service, you wouldn't. If you were being sneaky about it, you wouldn't be putting out these tips to try to help other people avoid them.
Exactly. Exactly. You're exactly right. If I was wanting to sit there and put guys out of service, why would I be sharing? It's like, all right, folks, I'm going to give you a 25 question test. And oh, by the way, here are all the
answers.
That's what I'm doing.
Yep.
I'm giving you answers and giving you tips and tricks on stuff that, because I understand that, you may drive your truck day after day, year after year, and you know that truck inside and out. But with you doing that, too many times I've seen guys, I just worked on this truck for 12 hours this weekend. I did brakes, I did tires, I did this, and then I go, yeah, but what about those airlines that are rubbed through, and what about this? Oh, I never even thought to look at it. So it's like, we're not trying to, we're not trying to nitpick, but just look at it as you've got a different set of eyes, and me personally, the way I see it is, yay, I found something that he missed, but I found it because I care. I don't want him to get in an accident because his airline ruptured, because he had no clue about it, and now he loses those brakes, and worst case rolls his truck, worst case rear end stop traffic, all over something that, just and like I said, too many times in the media, truckers, they get a bad rap. Because people act like, oh, they're just rolling down the road in these big piles of junk and this and that. But it's like, I see the other side. I see how much time and effort and money and blood, sweat, and tears that these drivers put into their rigs. And I don't want to see an accident happen over something minor and then start that whole chain of issues. So guys, when you're out there, you're getting stopped, you're getting inspected, take a few minutes, work with that inspector, kind of watch where they're looking, or better yet, ask them, say, hey, I know I get tired of looking this thing up and over. Is there certain areas that you as an inspector like to look? Because me through training guys, I noticed some guys, they love to look at tires. One guy in our squad, he loves to look at brakes. He's the type, he'd call me over and go, hey, Hoover, look at this brake chamber. I'd be like, yeah, but what about this load that's not secured properly? Oh, or another guy, hey, come over, look at this brake light I found out. And I'm like, dude, these tires are bald. Oh, I didn't even notice. So us as inspectors, we do the same thing, and sometimes, excuse me, we, and as officers, we fixate on these things because maybe that officer, when he first got into the truck division, he worked that bad crash in the tire. The driver, it just rained a little bit, and the truck had slick tires, and he wasn't able to come to a stop and rear-ended that minivan and killed somebody. So that sticks with us. That sticks in our psyche. So when he goes out each and every day, that's the thing he's going to be picky about, is the tires. So just work with these guys. Say, hey, I noticed you're looking here. What exactly are you looking at? That way I can do better. That says a whole lot,
Yeah.
But that just says a whole lot on you as a driver that, hey, I don't know everything. Can you share a little bit of my knowledge? And like I said, there's been many times I'm looking at something and go, hey, driver, what exactly is this? And he goes, oh, well, it's this or this. And it's like, oh, okay.
Wouldn't have even known.
Yeah, exactly. Or and that's their home away from home. So,
Yeah.
And occasionally I'll get somebody go, hey, yeah, this handle's for the train horns, and I'm like, don't hit that. I don't want to hear that. But excuse me.
Oh, no worries. And if you need to grab a quick drink or something, I'd be happy to hold down the fort here for a couple.
There we go.
There you go.
I turned around and I happened to have a ooh, that water tastes about 3 weeks old. But anyway,
Right.
but there's just so much positive and and with so much going on right now with all of us. 3 weeks ago, truckers were the heroes, law enforcement, first responders are the heroes, and now 3 weeks later, we're everybody's worst nightmare.
Sure,
And it's
sure.
like, what happened? The
Yep.
truck drivers didn't do anything different. Law
Yep.
enforcement didn't. So we just need to basically get back to basics. Um, and just work with folks, work with individuals, and know that states like Indiana, in the next few weeks, when things start getting going again, we're going to start getting back out there.
Mhm.
Our inspection numbers are going to go up. Trucks are going to be getting stopped and weighed
Yeah,
and
definitely.
looked at, and so because you think about the I must swallow a bug or something when I'm walking around.
Take your
But
time, Trooper Hoover, whatever you need.
no. But I need to get off my soapbox and let you get back to it. But
Oh, no, you're
but
good.
like I said, that's just the big thing is work with those individuals, work with the officer inspector, and just know that we've got other stuff on our minds, on our shoulders. We got other weights that we're trying to bear. So just work with us, and just know that that company that you've seen running up and down the road this last few months that's been looking shady. That's what we're going to be out there looking for. So
Mhm.
just kind of work with us and go from there. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for keeping us all safe while we're out there too.
yeah,
I'm sure everybody wants to be, and I think like you brought up what I enjoyed especially that you brought up there was kind of that just having that open mind of wanting to learn something from you guys, and like I'm sure you've learned, like I mentioned, like plenty of stuff from the drivers as well. I was wondering if you've got the time, if you'd like to, if you have anything that sticks out as like the best thing you've ever learned from a driver when you were out inspecting.
probably the best thing I had. I'd been inspector probably 3 years, and and like I said, everybody knows this personality of I know everything, and there's nothing new you can teach me. Everybody has
Mm-hmm.
a coworker, family member, something like that. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was never like that. But there was this one time I had a truck stopped and asked to see something, and it was one of those cases that I had an instructor teach me that if you were running local and then you were now running a logbook, you still had to produce previous 8 days or previous 7 days. So I asked to see his previous 7 days, and for 3-4 years I'd ask guys to see the previous 7 days,
Mm-hmm.
and had a driver go, well, um, I was always told that it didn't. You don't need to show it, and I was given this verbiage from a scale house. And I said, well, can I see that? And he's like, oh, absolutely. And I took that, looked at the code, went back to my book, pulled up that code, pulled up that interpretation, read it, and was like, well, who knew? You know. So looking back, the old guy that instructed me that nope, that's the way it is, and that's what I. So from that day forth, like I said, I always gave the benefit of the doubt, because
Sure.
these are big books. They're a bunch of regulations. There could be something that guy knows because he's dealt with it that I've never run across.
Mm-hmm.
So from that day forth, it's always stuck in my mind. Always, always, always. And every time I teach a new student or a new inspector, I said, always, always, always be willing to listen and be willing to let them talk and understand that they may share something with you that you know and by no means do I mean allow them to walk on us or to not follow what we're doing, but always be willing to take a moment and look that information up,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had it in the one time that the one driver corrected me. I've had probably 100 other times where I sit there and I say, okay, yeah, all right, but did you know that changed last year? Oh, well, I had no idea. Yep, it's right here. And I love wasting paper because I love printing off information. I'm one of those, if a driver didn't know, I'm going to print the law or the regulation off to give to them to show them this is where I'm coming from. Because I would expect that if the roles were reversed.
Sure.
If there was something I had questioned about or I didn't understand, I would much rather that driver learn right here, hey, here's where it's at. This is the most current. Here's the verbiage. Because the one time I had something happen, I had a driver, I asked to see his logbook, and he goes, and he pulls out this little green FMCSA book, and he goes, this book right here says I don't have to have a logbook. And I said, okay. I said, that's fine. All right. I said, tell you what. I said, where are you coming from? Where are you going to? I got all that information. I said, I'm going to go back. I'm going to do my research. I want you to sit here and you do research. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes. You show me in your book where it says, and I'll show you my book where it says you do.
Nice.
15 minutes later, I had 8 sheets of paper printed off, the inspection, everything was ready. And I said, okay, where in your book? And he goes, you know what? I don't know. Screw it. He goes, I threw the dang thing in the back of the sleeper. I'm just going to go with whatever you tell me, officer. So I was like, okay. I said, but under this section, this title, this subsection, you started here. Here's the map. I printed out the map. Here's where you're coming. Here's where you're going. At this point in this city and state is where you exceeded your 100 air miles. So at this point, from this point, you're only 30 minutes, basically 30 miles out of that. I'm just going to write you a warning. You should have started a logbook back here, yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
So, I'm more than willing to listen. If you can prove it, great. If not, I'm going to stand by what it is with this material. So, and with that being said, if you've got a question, and there are some inspectors, they're not going to waste any time. They're going to say, this is how it is. You got any discussion, take it to court. That's fine. But know that there are resources out there if you've got questions, and especially the Facebook page is a great way. If you've got a question, hey, and I had a guy the other day, he's like, I'm putting brand new lights on the back of my truck. I want to make sure they're compliant. And he runs the scenario by me. Yes, that meets this code. Look in 393.11, that chapter. That's going to tell you what you need on the back. And now he's got his answer. And worst case, he's not stopped 6 months later for having the improper light, or color in that. So, if you guys are listening to this and you've got a question, shoot a message, my way. I'd be more than happy to answer that and try to get that answered. But be willing just to be calm and ask questions. And once in a while, you'll run across one of these inspectors like me that, hey, I've had roadside load securement classes. Stop a driver, and he's got a piece of equipment and it's not loaded correctly. Got to talk to him, said, hey, how long you been doing this? He said 6 months. And I said, has anybody showed you how to properly secure this? And I kid you not, we sat there another hour and 45 minutes with him, and we went through every piece of equipment that he's, I printed him off worksheets that I've put together for load securement to help with weight ratings and what gets 50%, what gets 100%. And work through it. And he was thanking me. And I'm like, I don't care, bud. I get paid the same. And you know what? I made his job safer. That was worth it.
That's fantastic.
Some guys would have looked at it. Well, you should have just wrote a ticket, placed him out of service, and went on to the next one. Yeah, but would he have learned anything? Would he have benefited anything? Would it have been any safer? Because writing a ticket, placing out of service, which I still wrote him a violation.
Mm-hmm.
I still placed him out of service. He still got wrote up, but the big difference was he left there knowing exactly what he needed to do to make it right, and he left with the materials to make it right. And you know what? That didn't cost me anything. to slow down, take that time, and educate. And
Yeah,
and
and
that's the way 90% of us out here are.
cool.
We I don't like working big serious truck crashes. I'd rather be stopping trucks and looking at them for 30 minutes and thanking the guy and sending down the road than to be working bad truck crashes. So
Yep. Yeah, and who
usually that
knows?
means somebody's gotten hurt, and that's no fun.
Yeah, and who knows what
That's
you
no
might
fun.
have avoided just helping that guy get, know how to secure his load, so that the next time when you're not around to show him how to do it, he actually knows how to do it, so he's not putting somebody else in danger on accident. So, very cool.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And if anybody's listening, they got a company in the Indiana area. Hopefully, once all this COVID stuff, I love going around to trucking companies, doing PowerPoints and taking them out in the yard and showing different things and because if I have 2 hours with a group of guys and show them what we're looking for, how to secure things, look at the amount of knowledge. They're all going to do it better,
Mhm.
hopefully safer, and 2 hours standing there talking to them, drive. It just makes it all worth it.
Cool. Al John is asking if when you put that guy out of service, if he got any points.
Yes, anytime there is out of service, there are points that come along with that. I take that into consideration as well because a lot of how you determine points or how points are determined is how you write things up.
Mhm.
Um, and with what the violations he had, basically, I tried cutting benefit of doubt. I think I took, instead of placing 3 things out of service, I just listed 1 out of service, kind of lumped them together. So there's ways that we can, but ultimately though, and some guys would be like, well, yeah, but you still affected his CSA and everything. But they need to understand, that company needs to understand that they can't just hire somebody and throw them out there and having them do this. So there's still that checks and balances of, did I write that guy a ticket? No, but and then they still want to say, well, yeah, but you still wrote him an out of service, so you're costing points. Well, yeah, but there's still federal regulations say if you hook onto a truck and a load, you're responsible for that. You're responsible for knowing. Now, do I think it's a little rough that the poor guy was just hired to the company 6 months and had no training? Yes, but the company still, in my opinion, needs dinged, and they need to be dinged with some safety points to realize that you can't just put drivers out there with 6 months experience hauling heavy equipment.
Mhm.
That's what gets people hurt and killed. So, and that's what generates some of the, well, you're just a revenuer, you're just that. And it's like, hey, I've got a job to do, and yes, I'm going to be as fair and as balanced as I can. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry, if there's something that's out of service, you're still going to get wrote up and out of service. I may not pour salt in the wound and write a ticket on top of that, but you are going to be placed out of service, and you're going to get, unfortunately, some points.
Sure.
But that's, I mean, I can't be any more, you know, I'm not going to go out and jeopardize my job by letting everybody go with no um, with no punishment, because again, ultimately there was some no-nos and there were some major issues, but hey, he got an education, and then like I said, that company needs to be aware that they made a boo-boo by sending that guy out there with
Mhm.
no course of action. So, and like I said, there's little violations that I call back pocket violations that I don't get too worked up over if they're missed or have an issue. And but there's some stuff. No, I'm sorry. You could be the best guy. You could be a priest on the weekends and say, doing all this, and a nun, doing this. But
Yep.
I'm sorry, if your CDL's expired or suspended, you're getting a ticket. You're placed out of service. If If you falsified your logbook, you're getting placed out of service. If your tires are all bald, your brakes are bad, your brakes are out of adjustment, I'm sorry, you're getting placed out of service. But I could still work with that individual if, and go from there. So
Yep, and that makes sense. I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable and fair there. I mean, you've got to have, if everybody knew that if they came through, your station and they weren't going to have any consequences, then I don't think anybody would be trying to stay compliant.
exactly. Then what's the point?
Mhm.
And if you got a minute, another good story I share
Sure.
on this is I was stopped along the roadway doing an inspection, finishing up, noticed a truck coming up on the shoulder, had his four-way flashers on. He stopped about a half mile behind me. I circled around, checked on him, and he goes, "Hey, I blew a tire about 3 miles back." And where I work, it's kind of desolate in the fact that there's not any truck stops or service centers or anything like that close by.
Mm.
And he said, "I was just trying to get up the shoulder, find a better spot to park, and I saw your lights and thought, uh-oh, I better just stop." And I said, "Hey, I totally get it, man. I tell you what, half mile up the road, I know a perfect spot you can pull off into, and we can get you off the road." I said, "I'm going to stay back here with my lights on. You cruise up the shoulder. Let's get you off the roadway." So we did that. He pulls in, gets turned around, and he gets out of his I pull up, and he gets out of his truck, and he's got his license and logbook and bill rating. He goes, "I'm sure you're going to want to see all this." I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, I'm sure you're going to want to do an inspection on me and place me out of service for my tire." And I said, "No, I'm not interested in that." He's like, "You're not?" I said, "No." I said, "In my opinion, buddy, you did everything right. You pulled off, you slowed down, you acknowledged, and you was looking." I said, and I couldn't finish the sentence when a semi passed by us, an intermodal container passed by running in the passing lane, chunks of tire going everywhere, spraying. I said, "Hold that thought." I said, "I'm going to get you a buddy." And I went and stopped this intermodal, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I blew a tire." He goes, I go to the next pilot. I get it fixed. No problem, buddy." And I said, "Good problem, buddy. Follow me." And I turned him around, parked him in the same lot, got all of his information, wrote him a violation, placed him out of service for a flat tire. And the guy was looking, scratching his head, and I motioned for him to come over here. I said, "You see the difference in you two?" I said, "You both got a flat tire. You're both now sitting here waiting on the service company." But I said, "Notice one of you's got an out of service on an inspection, and the other one doesn't." And I go, "What was your big difference?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "You knew you had a problem. You slowed down. You had some common sense. I'm going to reward you for that." This guy thought, "Oh, I'll just run with a flat tire the next 70 miles up the road to, I mean, so what? So, there's things, and I'm not saying that if you pull off the road and do 35 miles an hour up the shoulder with your four-ways on, every officer's going to be the same, and that rubs me the wrong way because, there's a big difference. It's something with as many mechanical moving parts on a big rig, something's bound to break. Now, was it something that you knew was going to break, or was something broke because of poor maintenance, or did a tire just blow? Did something just break? Did a wire just snap? So, again, the common sense, but, again, the attitude can go a long way with that. So,
Yeah, the attitude's not going
like
to
I said,
guarantee that you're not going to get an out of
yeah,
service, but it can
it's
definitely
not going to
help.
guarantee, but it could help.
Sure.
And just being honest, saying, "Yeah, I blew it back there, but I knew there was a ramp up here 2 miles, so I thought I'd just try to creep it off, and I didn't want an accident or anything." And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you might get that trooper or inspector that says, "Well, sorry, you got a flat tire and you're okay." Because technically, by the law, you can't run up and down the road with a flat tire. Yes, that's the letter of the law, but
Common sense.
common sense. But then again, like I said, not all of us think the same way, and you never know. Because there was something I had an older troop. He's long since retired now, I was at a conference or something, and he goes, man, I write trucks every day for this one said violation. And I kind of looked at him, and I was like, that's kind of nitpicky, isn't it? He's like, nope. And I said, and I looked over at the guy, and I said, what's his deal? And he goes, well, his old man was killed in a truck-related accident, and supposedly the trucker was doing some. Oh, I think it might have been an hours of service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like something like was over on his logs or something. So they said, yes, this guy, he didn't care if you were 10 minutes over on your logs or 2 seconds over. He was writing you and placing you out. And I was
Gotcha.
like, why is this guy like this? And turns out his father was killed in a truck crash, and they deemed that the driver had been driving for 70 hours straight, no rest, fatigued, and ran a stoplight, T-boned his dad and killed him. So he and some people would look at that and go, well, that's absolutely wrong, that's a personal vendetta. And it's like, you know what, if you're over on your log, you're over on your log. Law states you can't do that. Now he chose to write it every time, and so understanding that once in a while there may be a chip on the shoulder, but wouldn't you have the same chip on your shoulder if something, and I tell these drivers, I'm like, especially on this stretch of highway, I'm like, this is my backyard. And I said, my wife drives these roads with my kids.
Yep.
And I said, I'm not going to have you acting like a dumbass, pardon my language, on my stretch of highway.
Definitely.
So, but anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I don't think there's really been any other questions. And
no,
again, I appreciate coming on. And like I said, if anybody out there's got any questions or anything, would like to hit me up, I can be found Indiana State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division. Come by, give us a like. Like I said, I don't really have any new content on there, just with everything going on. But hopefully this summer, as things lighten up and we get back to inspecting trucks, we can get some fresh tips.
Cool. Yeah, I know I put all of your contact information in my last live stream with you, but I linked to that last live stream video in this one, but after we're off here, I'll make sure I also put in the description below that link to your Facebook page so everybody can find it faster. Yeah, we don't have a lot of questions here. It looks like Eric from the Trucking and OD podcast jumped in and said hey and great job with the show. And Eric, we did cover Robert's question. That was that one we covered earlier, Trooper Hoover on the livestock hauling. That was a guy that Eric sent our way. So hopefully Robert got what he was looking for. But otherwise, this has been great. It's been informative once again. So thank you again for your time. And
oh, absolutely.
We'll get those links there so people know where to find you, because I'm sure they're all gonna be able to. Everybody can benefit from being able to ask an expert without having the looming test ahead of you. Make sure you get those answers first. So thank you very much again, Trooper Hoover, and I'll sign off here and let you go. And have a safe week, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Take
we'll
care.
Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
So there you have it, guys. If you have any other questions for Trooper Hoover, you can find him on his Facebook page. And if you'd like me to follow up with any other questions like we did this time, just put them in the comments below. You can also always reach out. I'm going to see if I can find this here for you. Yeah, there you go. If you have any recommendations on things we can do to make this show even better for you, add more stuff in here for you, I personally answer this email address, and when we do live call-in shows, that's the number to use. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope you got as much out of it as I did, and we'll see you next time.